We are back. More Buckeye content. I'm Chris Drew from Minutes of Sports. Got my guy Ron in here from Best Damn Media. Back evening stream. We got Purdue on deck. Ron, brother, what is good?
Nothing much, man. Appreciate Bleacher Report for having us back. We're here to talk bold predictions for the Purdue game.
Yeah, bold predictions and a Purdue team that's been a little thorn in the side. You know, we've kind of left the summertime. We're approaching spooky season. Purdue's got the black uniforms. Obviously, we've struggled with them recently. I hate to say upset alert back-to-back weeks, but definitely an anxiety game going to Purdue. Am I alone on that, or are you right there with me?
I don't know. Well, number one, I don't even think it's been a few years. It's been the history of Ohio State, man. It seems like it's a tradition to lose to Purdue. I wouldn't say it is an upset alert, but I definitely would say this has trap game vibes. You know, we have Penn State the following week. So it may be a look ahead type of game. So I wouldn't say upset alert, but as long as they're focused, I think they get it done. But definitely trap game vibes with the setup and the history with this team and that stadium.
It is big trap game vibes, Ron. And I'm not going to lie. I think because it's trap game vibes and like everybody's kind of like spoken, or at least the grumblings that it's trap game vibes, that almost makes me feel a little bit better because it's not like a team that's going to sneak up on you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think Ohio State would let Purdue sneak up on them, but it definitely it definitely is just one of those things. I mean, if you look at our last four starting, or not our last four, but four starting quarterbacks that all lost to Purdue: Troy Smith, Terrell Pryor, Braxton Miller, Dwayne Haskins.
I mean, you look at some of these scores in some of these games. I want to ask you and the chat, like, what is the worst loss out of these four that you remember? I went back and watched the highlights of the Terrell Pryor game. You know, I'm a big TP guy.
Yeah.
Grew up about 15 minutes away, watched every one of his high school games. So big Terrell Pryor fan. And I went back and watched that game. And man, did bro have a stinker. It was terrible, man. Fumble on the first drive. He had another fumble later in the game. 2 interceptions, a muffed punt. And it was just one of those games, like even on the rewatch, like, oh, I know what time it is, man. Like, I can see what's going to happen. Even his first fumble was so ugly. He was going down, about to take a sack. All he had to do was fall over. But for some reason, he had his arms held down. He pulls the ball away and just fumbles it, just like throws it forward, almost like he was going to try to pass the ball and just lost it. And from the start of that game, you could tell something spooky was about to happen. And that was a terrible loss. So we went and put the poll up in the chat, which loss at Purdue hurt the most. And I mean, you look at the trend in these losses, the emphasis is on at Purdue because it's something about these away games. So Chris, I don't know if one of these losses sticks out to you, but is there any one of these in particular that seems to hurt worse than the others?
I really feel like that 2018 Ohio State team had a chance to win a natty. So that one felt crazy to watch. And I believe Dwayne Haskins dropped back over 60 times in Urban Meyer. So to drop back 60 plus times and only have 20 points. That one felt disgusting. We couldn't tackle that game. And then that game felt like it just lasted forever. But I was drawn into watching because I was like, oh, like we could score quick. This offense is moving the ball. And then it just never happened. So that game really, really hurt. I mean, the 2004 game, we obviously were a national title contending team. But that 18 team, I felt like had a national championship level offense with I think Dwayne Haskins and J.K. Dobbins. And so that one definitely hurt. Yeah, Terry McLaurin, Paris Campbell, like they had dudes on that team, and still almost made the playoffs even with that loss. But yeah, that one really sat with me. And then still the train going off, like that felt crazy. And then additionally, I did a radio show right after that, Ron, and the whole computer went down. And so we couldn't cut to commercial break. So while the computer was rebooting, I just had to talk about this game for almost 40 minutes straight, no co-host, just me. And so I'm just like sitting in there, just getting angrier and angrier as I sit there and talk about the game. But yeah, man, at Purdue, it's like spooky season curse, really, really frustrating.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't touch on it, but the Fick year in 2011, they lose in overtime. So, I mean, all of these have had their own uniqueness to them and not been great watches for Buckeye fans. So we also have another chat. Does Ohio State's history of upsets at Purdue concern you? Because I look at this Purdue team and I'm like, I don't know what to worry about. But when you look at the history of this game, you're like, we seem to find a way to lose. Because, I mean, you look at that Terrell Pryor game. I saw someone in the chat say the Terrell Pryor game is definitely the worst for them. That team should not have lost that game. That game shouldn't have even been close. They should have blown that team out. And just from the start, it looked like they had it in their head. They wanted to lose that game. So it's just been a lot of weird stuff around these games.
Yeah, definitely super weird. Definitely super uncomfortable too. I don't know how you feel, Ron. I don't have a ton of anxiety about this game in particular in terms of like given the previous losses, because for all the faults that we like to talk about Ryan Day, he's avoided the one thing, and it's the random weird loss, right? Like Urban couldn't avoid it. Fickle couldn't avoid it. Tressel on the goat head right there. Couldn't avoid it. But so far, Day's avoided it, right?
I mean, every coach since 1947 at Ohio State has a loss to Purdue in West Lafayette. Like, I mean, John Cooper, Earl Bruce, Woody Hayes, Fick, Urban, Tress, everyone has lost at Purdue. And Ryan Day, the current head coach at Ohio State, has been able to avoid that blemish. We brought it up last week. Ryan Day, was Ohio State on upset alert against Maryland. Ryan Day has only lost to one Big Ten program in the regular season, and those were the two losses to the team up north. We do not have that awful trap game loss, random upset alert type of game. Like Ryan Day has lost in the playoffs in the ranked teams. So that's the one thing that you do have to give. I mean, obviously, there's countless things you have to give Ryan Day credit for, but that's another notch in his cap as far as things that he's been able to accomplish at Ohio State. And avoiding one of these awful losses is definitely something that he has on his resume.
And really, for the most part, Ron, he's avoided even the scare, like the needing a last second touchdown drive to go beat a team unranked. Like we haven't needed that yet under Ryan. So for that reason, I'm not, it's not going to keep me up at night, but it is weird, like the eerie energy. And then if Purdue, which I don't think it'll happen, but if Purdue pulls this off, I'm convinced it's a curse or something. Like like at that point, like I can't explain it. Never been into the supernatural stuff, but it's like all right, now you got your one loss to Purdue out of the way. Now never do it again. Right.
Yeah. We're going to have to take a trip down to Louisiana and figure out about this curse if we lose to them.
Facts. Big facts on that. But I want to jump ahead and talk about this game in particular, Ron. Get some predictions for the game. So obviously last week.
Did you just say predictions?
Predictions like Purdue.
Oh.
All right. Anyway, I'm not taking it back. We're rolling with predictions this episode with Ron and Chris. All right. So last week, a little bit of a nerve-wracking start to the game. Obviously, the first half was not pretty. That's been well documented. We won't really go too much into it. One of the things that Ohio State struggled with has been the run game. At least against Maryland, the run game was a concern. We've realized teams are now loading the box and daring you to throw the ball. And if you want to run it, cool, run it. We've got extra guys in the box. The offensive line taking a ton of heat this week. Ron, how many yards will Ohio State run for? Under 100, over 100, over 150, or 200 or more?
If Travion Henderson plays, we run for. See, I wanted to pump Sunshine. I wanted to be that guy, but I don't see 200 yards. Over 150 if Travion Henderson plays. I wanted to get out on that ledge and say 200, but I'm just not quite there yet. I think 150. We really haven't seen a game where both backs go crazy. We've seen all of the backs contribute or two backs contribute and have big moments. But even like we talked about the Notre Dame game, it's like Trey has the big run. He has almost 100 yards in that game. And then Chip Trainum has the play of the game. And then you look at the box score and it's like 18 yards, 1 touchdown. And it's like, it doesn't paint the picture for how valuable he was in that game. So we really haven't seen the dual explosion from 2 running backs. So it makes me hedge against 200 yards, but I think 150 is definitely doable, especially if they're able to get out on them early. And I think with our defensive prowess, the quarterback has had trouble with turnover issues. I know Hudson Card has a 6-to-5 touchdown to interception ratio. So I think the Buckeyes defense will be able to confuse him and hopefully force some turnovers. So ideally, the Buckeyes will be able to get out ahead of them early and pound the rock towards the end of the game.
It's funny. I don't know how you felt about this last week, but last week was the first week in what feels like an injury-ridden career for TreVeyon Henderson that I sat there and thought to myself, wow, I really miss Trey. Because I love Chip. I really do. Obviously, an Akron guy does a lot of things really well. I think sometimes he is so well coached that he won't try to take things outside or like get extra out of him, which is what I loved about him. But for the first time, I was like, dang, Trey would have bounced that and got loose. And I miss that right now.
Absolutely. And I feel like just for the balance of Chip has to be beat up. Like, we're halfway into the season. They have him out there playing fullback. They have him out there playing running back. And he took the full load of carries for Ohio State last week and was pretty much the workhorse back. And I feel like with the amount of usage that he's had coming into that game, plus the wear and tear of that game, it just shows you the need for balance in that rotation. So I really hope that we're able to get TreVeyon Henderson back healthy. And I mean, we heard every halftime space that we've had this year, we've had people come in and call for Chip to be the starter, to be the workhorse, to elevate his carries. And I'm in that camp. I've said it a couple times that I thought that Chip should be RB1 and should be carrying more of the workload. But I feel like last week was an example of how much that balance works and how necessary it is for both of them to be the best they can be.
You know, we saw Brian Williams, who got a lot of carries last year at the end of the game, and he looked like he was running angrier and harder than I had ever seen him run. If Trey can't go, or even if Trey can go, you want to see some Mayan?
I'm good with anyone in that room. Why? Because one of the best coaches in the country controls that room. My guy Tony Alford out here has assembled one of the best running back rooms in the country. I've been lobbying for this guy to get paid, give him a raise, give him as much money as he needs, because I think Tony has 5 capable backs in that room. I'd love to see more mine, and it shows you the type of motivator and coach that Tony is, because you heard in the media, mine came in, he came in a little out of shape. He was in the doghouse a little bit with Tony Alford. And like you just said, we see him finally start to get touches last week, and he's running angrier than ever. So just hats off to Tony Alford. And I trust anyone in that room. But if that means mine needs to step up, I have all the faith in the world that Chop will be able to get it done.
Sounds like you want a combination.
A combination.
Bro, he was just running the ball so angry, like so angry. And I was like, whoa, yo, because I always would get up here and tell people, well, Chip can break tackles the same way. But the way he was running through tackles on that second level really surprised me. I think if Trey is playing, I think we get over 150. I think if Trey is not playing, I think we'll be around that 100 range. And we'll see. And honestly, it's time for this offensive line to kind of get downhill and impose their will, because they are taking a lot of heat this week after the performance last week. Emeka, a little dinged up. He left the stadium last week. And Emeka Egbuka, obviously one of the best receivers in the entire country, kind of takes, a little bit of a second fiddle because he is playing with the best receiver in all of college football, Marvin Harrison Jr.
I thought you meant Cade Stover.
How concerned are you with the wide receiver room without Emeka this week?
0, none.
Cool.
We are wide receiver man. Like, you hate to see guys go down, and I wish nothing but health for our guys. I want Emeka back as fast as possible in that lineup. But if you're telling me that I get to see more XJ, more BI, more Carnell, we are pushing the South Florida Express propaganda over here. If there's a chance to see an SFE alumni on the field, I'm here for it. So if we get to see Brandon Ennis, the only 5-star player in the entire Big Ten in the 2023 recruiting class, has yet to play meaningful snaps at Ohio State. And with Emeka out in the slot, I feel like this does open up an opportunity for not only XJ to step in and fill that role that he's always done admirably, but I also think it's a chance to get Brandon Ennis on the field. And we also even heard Brian Hartline hint at possibly returning punts. I just want to get your thoughts on that, because we have been screaming for a new punt returner at Ohio State for months. Why do we have one of our best players? And we talked about the unnecessary hits that Emeka's taking back there. No, he did not get hit returning punts, but why risk injury for one of the best receivers in the country to have him just catch punts? Like we're not returning any punts. We still have yet to return a punt in the history of Parker Fleming's tenure. We're not averaging a large return rate. So why not give our 5-star guy a chance, or a guy like Jaden Ballard, a speed demon, an opportunity back there, and keep our guys healthy?
2 names to know: Jaden Ballard, Brandon Ennis. Obviously, this is the week to try it out, because this week Emeka obviously probably will not be 100%, and I wouldn't be opposed to them holding him out. And what do you want to do? You want to see what guys you can put back there and who follows their coaching points and who's trustworthy for when you have to play Penn State at home. So for me, at least, I'm looking and thinking, okay, I expect Brandon Ennis to get a couple returns early, and maybe JB to get a couple returns late, Jaden Ballard. And then whoever is the most impressive, they will put back there for the Penn State game to avoid the additional hits on Emeka. So I would like to see Ballard back there. I think he is more terrifying with the speed, but I also can acknowledge the fact that Brandon Ennis, a little smaller, built more like a running back, has the short area quickness that we haven't had back there since Jalen Marshall was back there. And that's who he reminds me with the ball in his hands. And coincidentally, that's the last guy to take a punt to the house. You think he had 1 punt to the house and a 4-touchdown day against Indiana when Ohio State needed it in 2014. So I'm looking back and thinking, you know what? Let's put these 2 back there. Hopefully the defense does a good enough job, and we'll talk about it in a little bit later, to force 4, 5, 6 punts, and you get to see a good amount, a good sample size of both. And honestly, I can't wait. But again, 2 names to remember: Brandon Ennis, Jaden Ballard.
Do you think that we see Marv move into the slot at all this week, and rotation of the wide receivers that we've yet to see, or a combination of wide receivers that we've yet to see, wide receivers that we've yet to see? Because I feel like Emeka going down opens up a lot of different not opportunities, but options as far as rotation groupings for the wide receivers.
It does. It's interesting. And I was going to ask you the question, like, if I hand you $1 right now, who gets more snaps, Xavier Johnson or Carnell Tate, the superstar freshman? And I want to see where you were at with that. But I don't think we're going to rotate very much. This could open up the rotation, but Brett Harline also got up on camera and said, nah, it's our job to keep the 3 best out there as long as possible. So I'm like, oh, like maybe we're not going to rotate, even though this feels like the perfect window. But I do expect to see Marv in the slot at times. I think that may have been the plan no matter what, because I think that helps Kyle McCord. I think Marv in the slot, him being closer to the ball, and they run so many of those benders. I think that does help Kyle and help his completion percentage and help him get started early. And that's one of the things that this Ohio State team needs, is they need the quarterback to get going earlier than he has been.
If I had to bet money, I would go with XJ sees the majority of the snaps. And I think he's earned it. You know what I mean? He wears the block O for a reason, and he performs every time he touches the ball. So it's not like you could be, oh man, they're putting XJ. And it's like, yes, everybody loves the shiny new toy and wants to see, the 5-star freshman play, but XJ has shown time after time that he's more than capable. And I think that's who we'll see get the majority of the snaps there.
He literally has 1 bad play since he got to Columbus. And it was a bad call on the last week when they said there was an illegal motion. That's literally his only mistake. So a big XJ guy. He's got a little more wiggle, too, than a lot of guys. All right. Will Kyle get it going? And do you think we're going to see multiple touchdowns from the wide receivers this week? You think we get 1 or less touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, or 3 or more touchdowns from the wide receiver room?
I'm going to go with at least 2.
At least 2? Okay.
At least 2. We see last week I predicted Cade Stover and Julian Fleming. And man, if there's a little bit more on that ball to Julian, I hit on both of my predictions for wide receiver touchdowns. Receiving touchdowns. But I think there's going to be an emphasis to get these receivers involved this week. I think Marv has a big game, and it's one of those we've talked about this a lot. Like, you have the best player in college football. Force him the ball. I don't care. It's like that James Franklin interview. You ever think about just chucking it up there? It's like, is that a serious question? I'm like, yeah, bro. Have you ever thought about just chucking it up to Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yeah, bro asked the question like he was mad. It's so funny. I don't know if you saw the clip at practice today. James Franklin was yelling, "Just throw it deep."
Just throw it deep.
Literally comedians. All right, the offensive line at Kyle McCord, bro, they took some unnecessary sacks last week. At times I was like, wow, like this offensive line looks bad. At times I was like, wow, Kyle must not be seeing the field. Do you expect to see an improvement from the offensive line in pass protection? And do you think, how much of blame do you give the offensive line versus Kyle?
I'm still likely to lean offensive line. I saw it's almost started another Buckeye Civil War this past week. The clip of the deep Kyle drop where Josh Fryer gets beat at right tackle. And the big argument was, did Kyle take the drop too deep and need to step up in the pocket, or did Josh Fryer get beat? And I think on that play, I do say that one is on Kyle, and he needs to be able to climb the pocket and have more pocket awareness in that situation. But I don't think, for the most part, the offensive line is doing him any favors. And I feel like if we see more improvement from the offensive line, that will elevate Kyle's play. So I lean more toward we need to see a level up from the offensive line. And I think that'll be a big lift for Kyle.
Yeah, to keep it fair, I think that a lot of times people are blaming the other to prove a point when the likely answer is they've both been underwhelming. Quarterback play and offensive line play has been underwhelming, and people use one to blame the other, and that's kind of where we're at least that part of the season, because nothing's ever right, even if you're undefeated. Do you think Kyle and this offensive line will give up 0 sacks, 1 to 2 sacks, or 3+?
I'm going to go 0 sacks.
Oh, Stonewall.
Stonewall. I think this is a bounce back week. I mean, I sound like a broken record, man. They're not getting out physicaled. And I think you guys touched on it on your show this week that when you watch all 22 film, people were complaining about guards getting stuck on double teams and not being able to get up to the second level. But they said there was a lot of defensive holding going on during that game. And if you watch the all 22, I forget, I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys talked about it on your show. It was another show they were talking about it, but they suggested that Ryan Day is probably going to clip up some of the examples of the defensive holding, and they're probably going to have to address that either with the Big Ten referees or at some point in the offseason, and that's something that we probably won't see going forward this week. So I'm interested to see if they're able to get off of those double teams and get up to the second level, because linebackers were just running free last week. So if they're able to avoid the defensive holding and, get back to playing a more physical way, the thing that we keep hearing from Ryan Day and Justin Fry is physicality, and they want their offensive line to be mean. So I'm just looking for that level of aggression that we keep hearing from the coaches, but we're not seeing on the field. So that's what I'm going to have my eye on with this offensive line. Do we see a level of aggression from them that we haven't seen in the past?
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, we saw like one moment of aggression. It was Josh Fryer, and ended up in the penalty that resulted in a big play being taken back. But I'm hoping so. I mean, I'm one of the guys that's really been a fan and supporter and kind of pushing for Justin Fry. But that unit simply just has to be better for me to continue to kind of be on this train. The defense been really good all year. How impressive has this defense been to you this season?
It's been spectacular, and I can't say enough good things about the safety play. Last week, we were on here, and we did stock up, stock down, and everybody was in the comments saying, what does Josh Proctor have to do to be a part of stock up? And he was. We just didn't get to it in time. The show ran long. We didn't get to it, but Josh Proctor, can't say enough good things about him. We've seen interceptions. We've seen forced fumbles. Lathan Ransom has been all over the place. Like, you watch the all 22 of this defense, and you just see the safeties making plays left and right and flying around. So, I mean, if we're grading this defense, I'm giving an A+ to the safeties, and that was not a position that I expected to be one of the strengths of this defense. And I think it's possibly the best position room each week. And week in and week out, I feel like we see a different position group outside of one make an argument for the best on the defense. One week it's the corners balling out. One week it's the defensive line. I think the safeties have been playing spectacular, but I feel like our linebackers have still been leaving a bit to be desired.
Yeah, I agree. I think the linebackers are the weakness on the unit, on the defense. And unfortunately, when you're good everywhere, there has to be like a weak spot, and they are that. I think Josh Proctor is cementing himself to me as one of the top 10 safeties in America. And me, at this point of the season, I didn't think that was a sentence I would say. And I say that while also acknowledging he's probably not the best safety at Ohio State, because Lathan Ransom is the best. And then it's like, well, Sonny Styles is probably right there with Josh Proctor. So it's like he might be the third best safety at Ohio State, but a top 10 safety, top 15 safety in the country. Defense has been really good, really, really impressive. Now, I have the weakness as linebackers, but I'm not sure, honestly, I'm not sure that Purdue has the weapons to kind of maximize that weakness. Right now, their best receiving threat, who they put in the slot and outside, Deion Burks is the leading wide receiver, 5'11", 195, short stock here, runs like a running back, really big time after the catch, great balance, averaging 16 and a half per catch. You know, feels like a guy named Rondale Moore who gave us some problems. Didn't even want to bring up that name or that game. And Graham Harrell, one of the best young OCs in the nation, it's his job to get that guy open. If you had to guess, do you think he has over or under 65 receiving yards?
Over.
You think he's going to – I can see it. Depends on who.
And, I mean, I feel like the defense gets so soft at the end of the games when they're winning and teams put up so many garbage time stats that I feel like if that's their number one target, that he's going to be catching a lot of short stuff in those when the defense is in a little bit softer situation and are sitting back more. So I'm going to go with over 65 yards.
This should be interesting because I think they'll avoid Denzel Burke, but I do think that this will be a case of a quicker, twitchier receiver that has elite balance that could give Davison Igbinosun some problems. So I'm curious to see if he does give Davison, if that results in Mr. Matthews coming in the game, another name you need to know.
I was going to ask, did you think that Davison would actually present some issues being a bigger, more physical type of corner?
I think at the line of scrimmage, he absolutely could. But I do worry about the speed difference and kind of like Jermaine Matthews has better hips, I would guess, than Davison Igbinosun.
Yeah.
So it's about Igbinosun in space for me. So I think he could present some issues just because he is twitchier. And if you don't win at the line of scrimmage, like, is he a guy that's going to be able to shake you away from the line of scrimmage?
So you mentioned potentially seeing Jermaine Matthews, but I want to ask about seeing maybe one other person on this defense. We've heard coming out of the Notre Dame game that Steel Chambers was a little bit banged up. We've seen Cody Simon get into the rotation a little bit more than we expected in the last week. Is this a week where we could potentially see 5-star CJ Hicks at linebacker, another name that has sparked a civil war within the Ohio State fan base? And it seems like people have been fighting since the offseason regarding these linebackers and whether or not CJ Hicks deserves to get on the field. Do you think with the injuries and the opponent that this is an opportunity to get this second-year 5-star a chance to get on the field?
With the injuries and with this being Purdue and with Penn State being next week, if you don't get him in this game, I don't think he'll play this season. I think he should absolutely get in this game. I know Graham Harrell likes to throw the ball, likes to put defenders in what we call conflict, and he is a better athlete. He's the best athlete of the whole room. So with the injuries, with the fact it's Purdue, he won't lose you the game. I say yes, put him out there and see what he gives you, and I think we are going to see him at least a little bit given the injuries in that room currently.
I think it's going to be great to see him finally get out there, and I feel like if Steele's hurt, give him a chance to rest up because Penn State's the game that matters. I know people have been talking about is Kyle McCord a quarterback that's good enough to win a national championship? And it's only week 6 right now, going on to week 7. We just need him good enough to beat Penn State at this moment because right now it's 1 week at a time, and we don't need these guys. We don't need to win a national championship on Saturday. We need to be ready to win the national championship in a few months.
That is a fact. Do you think our defense will force a turnover?
Absolutely.
Hudson Card has 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, like you said earlier. Will it be a pick or a fumble?
Pick.
Ooh, there you
Pick.
go. And will the defensive line finally have multiple sacks?
Yes. We're into the second half of the season, man. And I'm ready to lie again, man. I'm ready to go back to some of our preseason expectations, and I think the defensive line is starting to figure it out, and I do think they'll be able to get home at least a couple times this week.
Final question before we get out of here, Ron. Bold moment. Give me a bold prediction that you think we'll see this weekend.
I think we will see a three passing touchdown game from Kyle McCord.
My bold take, I think we get a Devin Brown rushing touchdown. Bring back 30.
Wow.
Hey,
now
I don't know.
Bold.
Just a bold take. No, my actual bold take, multiple touchdowns from Cade Stover. Is that bold enough?
I mean, that's their favorite weapon.
two tutties from Cade? Not bold enough?
Shout out to Cade, man. Let him play himself into a day one pick. If Cade Stover...
Scratch both of my predictions. My bold moment is a long Xavier Johnson touchdown.
So we have a Devin Brown rushing touchdown, 2 touchdowns from Cade, and a long XJ touchdown. So we're at 28 points. If my math is right, I got to take my socks off.
No, I said scratch the other 2. Get me out of here, Ron.
Man, I am Ron James of Best Damn Media. If you want to find me, you can find me every morning at 8 a.m. on the Best Damn Media YouTube for the Buckeye Roast, talking all things Ohio State football. You can catch me and Chris Drew Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. on the, again, Best Damn Media YouTube, doing the college football pregame show and our flagship Buckeye BS every Sunday at 10 a.m. Where can they find you, Chris?
Find me everywhere. Minutes of Sports platform every day at noon doing a live show. And then also, honestly, wherever Ron's at, I would like to be at also. So we're just trying to give, the Buckeye content that everybody needs.
Absolutely. We will be back on Bleacher Report every Monday and Thursday for the rest of the month. Big shout out to everyone that pulled up in the chat. Doreen, Cam, Seaball, all of you guys. We appreciate all the support. And we will talk to you guys next Monday. Thank you, Bleacher Report. Go Bucks in OH.
IO.